And welcome back to Football's Global Hub. This is our post-match show of the Revs 1-1 draw against Inter Miami. Joining me is Caleb Pograntz. He's back to share his views on what we watched Saturday night, which I think was an interesting view for Revs fans. Actually, I could say throughout the nation that watched this on Apple TV because of the Messi factor, because you still get a lot of people watching because of Messi. And I have some thoughts on how the Revs did against Messi, along with his teammates on Inter Miami. But before I do anything else, I got to welcome Caleb back to the show. Caleb, how you doing? Are you looking forward to talking about this match?
Yeah, doing good. Obviously, it was an interesting game. I think the result is definitely a positive one for sure, but definitely something to see the Revs build off of.
Absolutely. So when I look back, and my thoughts on this is that going into it, I'm not going to call it a free hit. Nothing's a free hit, honestly, because I think you're building the culture with Marko Mitrovic and the players coming together. Let me ask you this before we go on any further. I want to talk about the decision because I listened to Revolution recap. What did you make of the decision to go out with a very strong side and not rotate?
Yeah, I mean, I could see both sides of the coin. Obviously, Miami, one of the better teams in the Eastern Conference. It makes sense that New England should or could go for it. It at this point in the season, New England are they have a game in hand. They currently sit in fourth in the East. Um, Again, with that game in hand, a win can get them up to 19 points, which is level with Miami in regard to the league standing. So I understand why New England would go for it. I think it was probably in the end smarter for them to go for it. Obviously, getting the draw in the end, but no, I'm fine with them going for it. But at the same time, with the quick turnaround, Revs now play on Wednesday, which we'll get into a little later on.
Yep.
Kind of just see how they prepare for that one.
It's going to be interesting to see how he goes about it because one of the things I noticed coming out of the match, and we can talk about this while we go through it, is injuries. Players picking up knocks. I mean, this happened not just to Eli Feingold, which we'll definitely talk about because I think that was bad. I want to give him a lot of credit for gutting out in the first half. But what do you do now? Do you, again, going back to Revolution Recap, great show, talking about do you try to still put out a fairly strong side or do you go out with a Revolution 2 team along with, say, Diego Fagundes? What if you are Marko Mitrovic, what do you do? We'll talk about that a little bit later, but I think it's something to really consider what he might do here.
Yeah, for sure. I agree. It's going to be interesting to see how they pivot and obviously how these injuries kind of fizzle themselves out.
Okay. All right. Very good. All right. So let's get into talking about things I took out of I call football's global hub hot takes. So let's start with the first one that comes to mind. And this has actually been one that I've seen a lot on social media and again on podcasts as well. So I'm going to put you in the shoes of the Crafts or, or Bilal or whoever else you want to put in the shoes of. What should the Revs do with Matt Turner's contract situation? Because I think he's earning his keep. He's on loan. What do you do? Because, again, he can be a difference maker, especially if for some reason Matt Turner does go back. There could be a major drop off. Nothing against Parisian, but you don't know what you're going to get with him. You know what you're getting with Matt Turner.
Yeah, I'll be honest. I've been asked about this a couple of times now within recent weeks, especially surrounding the Turner situation. Obviously, he is out of contract on June 30th because he is on loan from Olympic Lyon. The purchase option format is roughly around, I believe, $3.5 million. And yeah, I mean, going off of what's been said publicly, Kurt Onalfo in February said to Revolution season ticket holders, he was asked, since Matt Turner's here on loan with an option to buy, are you planning on signing him? And Onalfo literally said, he goes, we're going to do everything in our power to keep him on our team. That's how
Okay,
he
that's
answered the
good.
question. So
Okay.
that was in February. That was before the season really had even kicked off. And now Matt Turner is providing numbers where he is arguably the top 2 goalkeeper in the entire league. Bear maybe Hugo Lloris because he has 7 or 8 shutouts this year. So Matt Turner is putting up better numbers this year than I believe any goalkeeper has in MLS history. He's
Wow.
on a trajectory right now that if he plays average the rest of the year, he will better his 2021 MLS 2020, the year he won in goalkeeper of the year. If he's
Yep.
completely average, he would average better than what he did then. So, I mean, good for Matt. One, but two, where does this play in his mind? Does he want Europe still? What are his thoughts with the U.S. men's national team right now?
Yep.
How much effect will going into this World Cup have? Again, it's a lot of unknowns, and it's unfortunate because I think Matt has come back and played extremely well. I think that Matt has proven that he can play at a high level.
Yep.
But it's really just on the Revs to activate that purchase clause. I think they should bring him back. I don't
That was
think
going to be my question. Would you?
Yeah, I don't think Matt should go back to Europe. I think he's comfortable. I think in this league, he one can get that US job, two can continue to get consistent minutes in a comfortable location, and three, viable statistics and output that will get him to that level that he wants to get at. There's nothing really in Europe for him at this point. Obviously, he's done Europe. He's played at Palace. He's played at Nottingham. Went to Arsenal.
Yeah.
He won the FA Cup. Went on loan to Lyon. Never really went. But it's like, at what point does that door close? And what does that benefit of playing overseas get you? So that's a question he's got to ask himself.
Yeah, well, that's a personal question. That's a great point because he's already done all this. I've watched his time at Crystal Palace. I watched his time at Nottingham Forest, and it really was, I hate to say it, underwhelming. It was underwhelming. And then, of course, he goes out on loan. And I always thought it was a mistake that he went to Arsenal because I had a feeling this exact thing was going to happen to him. And it has. So my hope is that he stays with the Revs because I think having a top goalkeeper, Caleb, even though I understand where Revs fans are coming from, that they want the club to invest in more offensive players. But if you have someone at this level winning you matches, I'm talking about winning you matches, I'm sorry. I stick with him, and then you can build the other pieces to go along with that. And again, for me, having a top goalkeeper, when you don't have one, you notice it, Caleb.
Yeah, and kind of building off that, Matt has MLS Team of the Week appearances in back-to-back weeks now.
Yeah.
He was named Team of the Week during the Atlanta game, and he was named Team of the Week after this Miami game as well. So Matt is showcasing further and further and further that he is one of the best goalkeepers in the league, but arguably U.S. number one.
Well, he's making an argument. I know, and I heard all the stats on it. Right now, his stats are phenomenal. So could he be making that push? I would hope so.
I think so.
I would hope so. Listen, I watched the match in Atlanta, the first match against Belgium. I think you got to throw that out, but people are going to judge what they see. I watch now a lot of Matt Turner, and when you see him play against quality players like Inter Miami, to me that was a tipping point for me. That was totally the tipping point for me because he really did his job well and kept the Revs in the game and believe it or not, a chance to win, which we'll get to. So let's move on from talking about him. I already mentioned this to you, and you probably have more information on this. Could injuries be piling up on the Revs? I mentioned Feingold, but there were some other players that came off not looking great coming out of that match.
Yeah, obviously Eli Feingold is the biggest one. Obviously got hurt in the match, had to be replaced at halftime. Revolution assistant coach Blair Gavin spoke about Eli yesterday to Seth Maycomber of the Blazing Musket. He said that, quote, we're working with doctors. We're working through that with doctors right now and looking at what we have for Feingold the next couple of days to understand what the injury is and what the extent of that injury is. So definitely a massive, massive piece to potentially lose. However, New England has depth. And I think that New England pivoted the right way, especially against Miami.
Yep.
I think this is going to be the first time this season that we actually see Peyton Miller start as an outside back.
Right.
Only took us 10 games. But I see this as a glass half full situation.
Okay.
Definitely a negative to see Feingold go down, but also you get to see that Peyton Miller flair shift over to left back, and likely Will Sands move over to the right back role.
Okay, so I've also heard talk that potentially Ethan Kohler could play that right back position, but then again, I don't know what the situation is with Ceballos. Would you be tempted to do that?
Yeah, I mean, kind of building off of that, like you just mentioned on Brian Ceballos as well. On the 23rd, Sam Latoff of the Blazing Musket asked Marko Mitrovic about Brian Ceballos' status, because I know there were rumblings and rumors of him being out until after the World Cup. That's just simply not the case whatsoever. Brian Ceballos is day-to-day right now. He's in the early phases of his injury, and he's actually in a very good spot. So he's under day-to-day evaluation. The club said that they want to be smart because those injuries are kind of tricky to get back from. You don't want, especially when it's not a high-level injury, because it's easier to get injured from. So the club is kind of just reevaluating him day by day to make sure that when he's ready to go, when they make the decision to play him, that he's 100%. But Marco's already said it's definitely not a long-term injury, and they look to have Brian Ceballos back very soon.
That's
and
great.
Based on how Ethan Kohler has been playing at center back while Brian has been down, I wouldn't move him. I would keep him there. I think him and Mamadou Fofana have done quite well together. Not as good as how Brian and Mamadou would do together, right, but I think you don't mess with Mamadou and Ethan and keep them together specifically for MLS matches. Obviously, when we talk Open Cup,
right,
everything's out the window because I expect a similar lineup to when they played Rhode Island FC on Wednesday. But we'll see. We'll see.
Okay, excellent. All right, let's move on. Now, I want to focus on the tactics that Marco used here. Now, I'm used to seeing a team play like this, going into a match, looking at the opponent and thinking, you know what, we can't really possess the ball. We're not going to possess the ball as much. We're just going to not sit back, but get ready to beat a team on the counter, especially quick, go direct, and take advantage of them in these situations. This is exactly what Mitrovic did. He set them up this way. This was by design, not by Inter Miami doing it. This is, I truly believe, by design. And there is a place for this. And I think there's an art to it, too. If you do it right and it comes off well, it can give you a huge advantage. I can go back to all the seasons with Atletico Madrid, made a living off that. You can even go back to Leicester City, making a living off that when they won the title. You can pull it off. What did you make of the decisions? Because I've seen criticism that the Revs were not on the front foot enough, but it was by design.
Yeah, I mean, you got to take into account who you're playing. Like, really, it's very important to look at the team that's in front of you. Looking at Inter Miami, obviously New England had a lot going into this game. The Revs currently, or at the moment before the game started, were sitting in a comfortable spot where with a win, they would jump to second place in the East. However, you need to look at the grand scheme of things. Miami had a 4-game win streak against the Revs dating back to April of 2024. The Revs have not done well historically against Miami as of recent. So you knew going into this game that New England wouldn't have a lot of the ball. They would not have a lot of chances going forward. They would not have much at all. 90% of this game, when I watched this game the other day, 90% of the game, I thought Revs are going to defend for 80 minutes. They'll have 2 chances going forward, but they'll be defending for 80 minutes. The hope is that they can get a draw. That's what the hope was.
Right.
Obviously, they got the lead, but you saw exactly once they got that lead, they tried to hanker down and defend, and you can only defend for so long. You can only defend for so long. The game was a cage match. I mean,
Yep.
New England somehow outshot Miami 15-14.
Right.
They were outpossessed 70-30 though. So point and key. But Miami's biggest issue with their team is they fly numbers forward, and that's how New England got those chances towards the end of the game. Is they had one-on-one opportunities because you play that ball forward, and making 4 120-yard sprints is not great for the human body. So obviously New England, I think, probably could have snuck away with a win here, but just weren't clinical when they needed to be most.
Right. And I'm going to we're going to piggyback off that because I thought the Revs had more chances to score than I thought they would. Okay. As you said, they're in there to defend, beat them on the counter. But off the top of my head, 3 chances from Griffin Yao, 2 were horrific chances. He had 1 decent one, but there were 2 that he skied, which is, again, not great. You have the Brooklyn Reigns opportunity, and then, of course, you have the Dor Turgeman one. That against Inter Miami is a decent amount, and like I said, I could argue that they should have maybe scored another goal here.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think those were the key ones. I think some of the decisions of that roster as well to this lineup against Miami were intriguing to me. Obviously,
and what did you make of how he set them up with the starting 11?
I'm happy with the majority of it. I personally don't understand why Griffin Yao is starting. I think he has a lot going forward. However, he hasn't really proven it on any regard whatsoever. Specifically when you need a player, specifically in this game, that is going to work hard, that's going to put the work in and defend on both sides of the ball. Especially when Luca Langoni needs a rest because of the egregious amount of minutes he's played this year.
Right.
I'm surprised that New England didn't play Diego Fagundes.
That's a good shout. That's a good shout.
Diego played for LA Galaxy last year and was the LA Galaxy Player of the Year because he played as the 6. He played as a defensive midfielder for LA last year.
That's crazy.
So in a game you're going to defend as well as counter, why would you not go with the experienced player that, 1, you can rely on defensively, but 2, also has flair going forward? So kind of intriguing in that regard. I think obviously this just means that Diego's going to play against Orlando on Wednesday, but at the same time, it's like I'm fine with everything else. Will Sands has been great.
Yeah, Will Sands actually has proven me wrong.
Yeah, Eli Feingold's been great. The Fofana and Kohler have been great. Yusuf and Reigns have been awesome. Carlos Gil's Carlos Gil. Dor Turgeman's Dor Turgeman. Peyton Miller has 3 goals off the bench. You can't take him out.
Not bad, Caleb.
Not bad.
No.
But if you're going to defend the whole game, why are you not going with a proven player that's
it's a fair point.
Good defensively, but good counter-wise? And it wasn't shocking when they replaced him in the 71st minute.
So the issue I have with Griffin Yao, because I think it keeps playing itself out, and I think he's going to continue to play, and maybe we'll start to see something different. But what I'm seeing is a player that I'm not saying he lacks confidence, because I don't think he does. I think he lacks end product. That's what I think. And I'm hoping he proves me wrong. But when I see some of these opportunities, it reminds me of players that look the part, but in the end, they don't have the goods. So I hope I'm wrong on Griffin Yao. I'm going to be a little negative here. I hope I'm wrong that he ends up having the goods. But right now, he doesn't have it. Right now, he does all the other stuff. But if you can't put the ball on target, then that's an issue I have.
Yeah, I completely agree. I think Griffin has positives going forward. He showed it during preseason, but at the same time, you can't reward a player that isn't successful right now. You just can't.
Right. I agree.
But looking at this Revs team, like as well, like if the Revs are going to make additions, like they need a center back, they need a left winger, they need a 9.
Yeah.
That's the positional needs if you're gonna go out and make a signing. And it's not because players haven't been performing. It's more or less that one, you can improve at those positions, and two, they just need the depth needs to be better.
Agreed. Totally agree, Caleb. All right, let's move on. You've already mentioned Brooklyn Reigns and Alassane Youssef, but I want to focus on Alassane Youssef because I think this is something that I've noticed from Mitrovic early on, and I've seen managers do this when they try to play a player in several positions, and then one of them just seems not to be the right position. He should just stick him where he can succeed the most and affect the game the most. Alassane Youssef is turning into a tremendous signing for the Revs. I would argue could be at this point maybe their best player. Obviously you've got Carlos Hill. Just the way he's influencing things from central midfield, I think, is huge. You can't play him out left anymore, Caleb. I've got issues with that.
Yeah, I agree. I think Alassane Youssef should stay in the center of the park. I mean, looking at his stat map against Inter Miami, he went 44 for 46 on accurate passes. That's 96% in that midfield. He was 1 for 2 on successful dribbles and 2 for 2, 100% accuracy on accurate long balls. Defensively, he had 11 defensive contributions with 4 tackles, 1 block, 1 clearance, 5 interceptions, 8 recoveries. He absolutely clamped Lionel Messi. I don't understand why you move him wide. And if you're looking for the goals from Youssef, you're going to get him in the midfield because
I know.
Looking back to that Atlanta game, he could shoot. Let him shoot from the midfield. It's fine. You don't need him to occupy a winger role where you have players like Jackson Ewell who can play wide, Diego Fagundes who can play wide, Peyton Miller who can play wide, Griffin Yao who can play wide, Cristiano Oliveira who can play wide, Marco Zambrano can play at the 9 and move Dort Hershman to play wide. It's like, why waste a spot or a positional of need? And I'll be blunt. I think Matt Polster comes back. He's not getting into this lineup at all. No chance. There's no chance he takes out Brooklyn Reigns.
I would hope not.
There's no chance he takes out Alassane Youssef. And Carlos Hill is 100% staying in this lineup.
Right.
So he's going to be moved to a reserve bench role or depth at that. I just don't understand why you'd pivot him in. But again, that's just another option of when Matt Polster comes back, like that injury hurt him. Not just as a player, but in his spot in the lineup.
He might not get back his spot, is what you're saying.
No chance. I would be shocked if Matt Polster comes back and immediately gets back into this lineup. No way.
Okay, so we've established Alassane Youssef. You've also mentioned Brooklyn Reigns. We've now got to see a decent amount of games in his early career with the Revs. It sounds like you're starting to see a little growth with him. What do you make of his play? I thought he was very good in this match.
Yeah, I think Brooklyn definitely, again, is a player that has grown. Looking at the season statistics, Brooklyn is the worst rated player on the Revs roster in terms of starters. He has a 6.52 match rating. However, I think that speaks a little too harshly on how he's played. Again, you have to take into account Brooklyn's a young kid. Yes, he played at the Dynamo. Yes, he got those instances. But again, another player like Brooklyn, Ethan Kohler, is the second lowest rated player. They both have 6.52, 6.51. And I think it's that's their youth showing. I think with more consistency and more games under his belt, but also like more self-belief, he'll continue to improve. And I've been happy with how he has played this year. Again, 21-year-old kid's got almost 800 minutes. Got 3 yellow cards in 9 games, which is a little concerning to me. But again, I think that he's done okay. I think he'll continue to build into his stride and continue to improve. But his last 4 games have been his best 4 games.
Yeah, totally agree.
I think his trajectory is going to continue to go up.
I agree with that. And like I said, sometimes you have to be a little patient when it comes to players developing at different pace, at a different pace. And I just think you got to give Brooklyn Reigns some time. And I know, listen, everyone wants it yesterday. But, what have you done for me lately? But I'm just saying, give him a chance. I think you're going to reap the rewards. I think you're starting to see it, but it just might take a little bit more time for you to really see it. All right. So now let's talk about the draw itself. And again, I like to go on social media right after the match and see what people are saying, and everyone has their comments. And I know it can be kind of a cesspool at times, but I like to see what people are saying. And one of the things I keep seeing a decent amount, and I think it just has to do with the history of the Revs lately. Maybe the reason goes all the way back to the fact that they've not won MLS Cup. I feel some are just expecting the worst and hoping for something decent. So what I mean by that, I go, what? There are people out there I think are marginalizing this draw for the Revs against Inter Miami. I'm asking why. I think it has to do with the expectations of the. I think the expectations are low, but they've been low for a while. I think this goes back to ownership. I could be wrong. What do you think? People look at the draw and they don't want to give the Revs too much credit. I'm giving them a lot of credit. I think they deserve it, but I think there are others that are looking to knock them back a peg.
Yeah, I think fans are very quick to negate a positive result, specifically against the team that has Luis Suarez, Rodrigo De Paul, Lionel Messi, Sergio Reguilon.
I mean, look at who they have.
Yeah, people are very quick to downplay the Revs getting a draw or even getting a result against any team because fans think that New England should have God knows who, Neymar, Ronaldo, Mbappe, and it's like, guys, smell the roses because it's not happening. It's just not. But people are very quick to blame ownership and blame the Revs' inability to sign a quote-unquote big-name talent. However, the Revs have found success as of recent with no-name talents.
Yeah.
Carlos Gil, prime example. Carlos Gil was terrible in the Premier League. He was terrible
Aston
in
Villa,
Spain.
I remember.
Deportivo La Coruña, he was awful. Now he's here. He's one of the best 10s probably in the last 20 years of MLS history. Like, smell the roses a little bit. I think if you want the Revs to go out and sign God knows who big name player, you're gonna have to wait till 2030 when the Revs have a soccer specific stadium. No one's gonna come here to play on turf. They're not.
Yep.
They're not gonna come to play in Gillette Stadium in a 68,000 seater stadium where it only fills less than 30.
Right.
So
no, it's all a good point. Listen, and I'm glad that you keep bringing this up. I've been harping on the turf thing for I don't know how many years. Caleb, I think it does prevent them from getting certain players. And when they go back to turf, and we all know they're going back to turf, I'm going to be angry because I think the Revs style of play has really suited the natural grass surface.
Yeah, I think it's definitely gonna be impacted when inevitably they go back to turf. But at the same time, I think New England hopefully will be in a good position at that point where they don't need to rely on it. They just need to continue to keep playing, and they just need to keep building off of it. They need to keep building and playing.
Right.
And yeah, that's a fair point. I just read that. Revs didn't get played off the pitch and scrape a draw. It was a strong performance. They should have gotten a result.
And that's my point. And they deserve that. And, that's what has bothered me about this is that, yes, did they give up a goal? And we're going to talk about the goal they gave up and all that. And the goal that probably should have counted. We could talk about that too. However, the performance itself, Caleb, that was not a fluke.
No, for sure. And I think, again, like we mentioned a little earlier, the Revs should have scored 3 goals in the last 5 minutes.
Had the opportunities to score. That was that was not an accident. Okay. And the one that's going to kill me, and again, we'll talk about when we talk about the Brooklyn Reigns opportunity, because can you imagine if that went in the back of the net, how everything might have changed for the Revs nationally if they beat Inter Miami. I was thinking, it's like, what a result this would have been, but it wasn't to be. But that does not mean that the performance wasn't very good.
Yeah.
Strong.
Yeah, I know we mentioned about the Brooklyn Reigns miss in the 95th minute. At the same time, if I'm Luca Langoni and I'm a forward, I'm not passing that ball. So I
So you put it on him. You put
I
some of that on him.
I wouldn't put all of it on Brooklyn Reigns. I would put some of it on Luca Langoni.
Okay.
However, Brooklyn needs to be better in the final third. That's just point blank proven.
Okay.
If I'm not mistaken, Brooklyn Reigns, he might have one professional goal in MLS. I don't think he has a lot. So it is what it is, but at the same time, like, you're a professional athlete, you're 10 yards from goal on a 2v1.
Yep.
Like, come on. Like,
Right.
let's figure it out.
Yep.
Don't kick it right at him.
Exactly. Okay. One final topic before we break down the match. And I just want to ask you this. And again, this isn't coming from anyone else. This is just a discussion piece, because when you look at what's going on with MLS, with the top teams, and you ask yourself where the Revs are currently fourth, right? They're currently fourth. So I'm just asking, do you think the Revs are in a false position right now in the conference, or is this where they should be?
No, this is where they should be. I predicted at the beginning of the year that New England would finish top 5. I have them 5th in the Eastern Conference to finish the season, and I think they're right where they should be. I think, like I've mentioned in the past, the Revs have had a playoff caliber team for quite a while, and the inability to coach and the inability to lead from the front and the inability of effort from the players that are on the field has stunted them immensely. And now that Marko Mitrovic is here, he's implying his tactics, he's implying his vision, he's showcasing what this team's potential could be and can be. And I think they're finally getting what they're supposed to be at. Like, his philosophy is working. His philosophy is working. And I don't see them in a false position. Looking at across the league, there are some other teams in false positions, but I think New England are right where they should be.
I totally agree. I think they've earned it. And, it's funny because on the other show I do, we talk about this all the time. The table doesn't lie. And I'm going to tell you right now, with the case for the Revs, the table doesn't lie. That, where they are in the conference, it's where that they should be. And I just hope fans understand that they've earned it, and they deserve to be where they are. All right. Coming up next, Kale and I are going to look back at both halves, and then we're actually going to end with a very quick preview of the upcoming U.S. Open Cup match for the Revs against Orlando. Okay, Caleb, let's get to it. Let's look at the first half. And what's interesting is that when we talk about the first half, I just want to get your general sense of what both of us, or what we watched and what you saw from the Revs in the first half. We've already talked about a good amount of defending. Did they create a few opportunities? Yes. But the one thing that I noticed was that I felt that in that first half, coming out of it, that the Revs belonged to play with Inter Miami, if that makes any sense. I thought they made a mark in that first half.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, right away, Matt Turner became Matt Turner and showcased why he's one of the best goalkeepers in the league. Shut down Luis Suarez with a massive opportunity, and then German Berterame had a really good shot from close range that was, again, met with a save by Matt Turner. Messi had a chance as well that led to a diving save by Turner. It took New England really 15 minutes to get their first opportunity, which then was saved deflected away for a corner. So a little frustrating that their one chance, like I mentioned, a game of soccer is just one chance, one opportunity is all you need, and it goes away. I think the first 20 to 30 minutes was very back and forth. A lot of Miami going forward, but once New England got that first chance in the 15th minute, the 20th minute, they started to open up a little bit. Griffin Yao had 2 chances in the 30th and 33rd minute. Messi had another chance in the 38th. It kind of just opened up a little bit and allowed New England to say, hey, we're here. We're ready to play. And I think the first half was really just a dogfight, a feeling out period for both teams to kind of just be like, all right, we're here. This game is very intense. It's going to be back and forth. Let's find out how both of us are going to attack this. And I think we saw positives from not only the Revs, but also Miami as well.
Yep, I totally agree. Something else that stood out, and we've already talked about, but I want to touch on it as well because I think it's something that at the time I wasn't sure if it was the right decision. I'm talking about with allowing Eli Feingold to continue to play because they were going to take him off. What did you make of the decision to keep him in at the end of the half? I know it's a gutsy way to do it from Eli Feingold, but at the time I'm thinking, is that the right decision from Mitrovic to allow him to play out the half?
Yeah, I think Mitrovic was just trying to be a little smart, I guess, with his substitution windows. Obviously, you're only allowed 3. So I think that Mitrovic was trying to be a little smart with his windows, trying to see if Eli could hold out into the half and continue on. I mean, I think when initially when he went off the field, I think he should have been replaced then and there.
Right.
He did not look comfortable at all.
No.
But I think that it just shows the fight that Eli has, and I think yes, it's unfortunate that he went down with an injury, but at the same time, I think that with that battle and knowing that you have a player that's willing to put that fight in and keep that consistency, it's very beneficial and helpful for not only the player but also for the teammates around him to know, all right, like he's here to fight, he's here to play, and that's good to have and to know that you have a player like that in your ranks.
Absolutely. All right, let's move on to the second half, and I'm just going to take us right to the goal from Carlos Gil. But what's fascinating about this is that it starts with Dor Turgeman, and then you have Gil. Basically, I think you could argue that Inter Miami was asleep for half a second. You should never sleep on Carlos Gil. What did you make of the goal? It came out of, I wouldn't say nowhere, but it was a shock. It had to have been a shock to the system at that stadium.
Yeah, I mean, I think, like I'd mentioned on Revolution Recap it as well as on throughout social media, Dor Turgeman has been getting pulled by every team that he's played against this year. Every defender is pulling on his jersey, making him battle for the ball. They're making his life a living hell. And that is the only way that they're going to find success in defending him. And I think you could see clear as day Turgeman battling for a ball with Maximilian Falcone. Obviously, he's using his body, shielding the ball. Maxi doesn't step fully, and Dor leaves the ball for Carlos to sneak right in, chip the ball home, and the Revs are up 1-0, running away with it at that point.
Right. And I can't remember if it was before or after, and I'm sure you'll tell me right now, the decision for the goal that they called offside. It was really close, but I actually think the Revs got a break there. What did you make of that situation?
The Allende goal?
Yeah.
I think he was onside. I don't think that goal should have been disallowed. Obviously, they have different cameras. They have different angles. From what I saw, I thought Allende was on an onside position. I think Ethan Kohler kept him onside. I think the Revs got really lucky, and I think they need to make sure going forward that any team can catch you at any moment. So you got to make sure you're staying awake and aware.
Absolutely, my friend. All right. So let's move on. Let's now talk about the equalizer from Inter Miami. And this is the second time in 2 matches we're seeing shots saved by Matt Turner, and then the rebound goes in the back of the net. Are you putting any of this on Turner, or is this just, we'll just call it a good goal from Inter Miami? What do you make of that?
Yeah, it's a good goal from Inter Miami. I think New England could have done a better job defensively in thwarting not only the shot, but also the rebound. I don't think Matt Turner should be faulted at all for that save. There's not much he really could have done with it. And I think that he handled it as best as he could. But again, it's a learning curve, and New England got kind of let off the hook a little bit. Um, they've gotten bailed out by Turner a couple of times this
Yep.
season. Obviously, bailing them out in a lot of opportunities this year to keep them into games, and you knew one of them was just going to go the wrong way, and obviously that was the one that went the wrong way.
Okay. All right. So we're at 1-1, and then obviously Inter Miami are going to have some opportunities, but the Revs had some too. We've already talked about a few of them, but I want to focus on two of them. And because I think they're both quality opportunities. One was difficult, the one from Turgeman, but then you have the opportunity, like we mentioned at the very end, from Brooklyn Reigns. You already have said Luca Wingoni should have been taking that instead of passing that off to Brooklyn Reigns. And I think I understand why you're saying that. But again, at the end of the match, I this is crazy for me to say. I felt that the Revs were the team more likely to score. That's crazy, but that's how I feel.
No, I agree. I think Miami wanted to go for it, and I think that they were willing to get caught out. And I think that obviously the way that Miami has played this year, they're willing to go for it. Again, they're in their own heads because they haven't won at their new stadium yet. So at the end, I thought New England probably could feel hard done by not getting a result.
Yeah.
So obviously unfortunate in the end because they could have gotten more or wanted more. But I think at the same time, they're still happy with what they got in the end.
Okay, excellent. All right. So as the situation with Brooklyn Reigns doesn't go the back net, the match ends in a 1-1 draw. And as Caleb and I have already talked about it, I think it was a well-earned point. And what's interesting about it, because now I want to just end and then we'll talk about the Open Cup match with man of the match. And for me, there's only one man of the match, but I think there are arguments for other players. I'm going to go, Caleb, to Alassane Youssef. I think if you watch it, if you love the sport and you love seeing players that can influence a game from the middle of the pitch like I do, you got to love a player like Alassane Youssef. He's my man of the match.
Yeah, I think Hassan Yusuf is definitely a good choice. I think he made a lot of impact. However, I'm going to go with the person who was named the team of the week, and that's Matt Turner.
Yeah.
Matt Turner made 9 saves, conceded 1 goal. His goals prevented was 1.45, and his expected goals against was 2.45. Again, Matt Turner proving once again why he's one of the best goalkeepers in the league continuously. And again, hard done by to not get a result in the end, but at the same time, I understand the use of shout, and that is a good shout. That he would be my second, but I think without Matt Turner in net, New England loses that game.
Okay, and I totally agree. That's a wonderful point. I don't think you can go wrong. I'm a big fan now of Yusuf. I see what he can offer. I saw it last season, but I think in the system that he's being utilized now under Mitrovic, I think you're even seeing a player that could grow into even a more dominant role, and I'm very happy to see that from Alassane Youssef. All right. Okay, Caleb, to end the show, maybe for about 5-10 minutes, let's talk about the U.S. Open Cup. And I want to start off here because I watched the last match, and it was difficult to watch. That match against Rhode Island FC, that was difficult. That was difficult to watch. And I don't know if we're going to get anything different against Orlando. Same location. So let's just talk about just what are you expecting between these two teams? Do you think we're going to see a better product in this U.S. Open Cup? And then we can talk about what we think the Revs are going to do.
Yeah, I think that you're going to see a better product. I think New England has continued to build upon their success throughout the season. I think players are getting more comfortable, more confident. I think New England is now used to playing in that system, that stadium. So it will be interesting to see how they play, how they line up, especially against an Orlando's team that is among one of the worst in the league right now, and arguably shouldn't even be in the round of 16. They snuck away with a 1-0 win over FC Naples, with a controversial goal that wasn't allowed, that Naples should have scored. again, very, very interesting to see how this one pans out, and I'm excited for it.
Okay. All right. I want to ask you because again, this goes to our conversation about Matt Turner. I expect Parisian to be in net, and very impressive in the shootout. Extremely impressive. Let's just talk about overall. What is your confidence level with him as a goalkeeper?
With Donovan Parisian,
Yep.
full confidence. I think Donovan Parisian is a great goalkeeper. I knew going into that shutout that New England had a shootout. Sorry, New England had a massive edge. Parisian is extremely well in penalty kick shootout situations, and I think that with Parisian and net, New England can find success and be uh, be positive in the final third, as well as in the defensive third. I think Donovan is a great goalkeeper. I think he has done a lot of growing over the last couple of years by playing for Revs 2. And I think that regardless of who's in net, whether it's Matt Turner, whether it's Donovan Parisian, whether it's JD Gunn, I'm confident in the New England Revolution's ability in the net.
Okay. So let's now focus on the players we might see because I think we're going to see some Revs 2 players. What do you make of? Is it Demario McIntosh?
Yes, Demario McIntosh. He is a New England Revolution first team player. He's signed to a first team contract. However,
Okay.
he plays all of his games with Revs 2 because obviously it's very difficult to play over Eli Feingold, Ethan Kohler. So Demario, great player.
Yep.
I would expect to see him in that match. I think in the grand scheme of things, I think the Revs will roll out a lineup like they played against Rhode Island FC. I
Okay.
don't see New England playing a quote unquote competitive lineup until after this round. I think if they progress into the quarterfinals, I think that is where you'll see more of the big guns, where it's Carlos Heel, Dort Terjman. Those players will get interjected back into the squad, in my opinion.
Do you think we'll see Eric Klein in this match?
Yes, I think so. In some capacity, I believe so.
Okay. And I think the player that will be featuring a great deal, I think we're both in agreement. You talked about the last match. I think Diego Fagundes will play a huge role here.
Yeah, I expect Diego to start. Again, I think looking at that lineup that they rolled out against Rhode Island FC, it's going to be along the lines of Parisian, Peyton Miller, Tanner Beeson, Ethan Kohler, Demario McIntosh, with a midfield three of Oliveira, Klein, Fagundes, and then a front three of Fry, Zambrano, and last game it was Yao, but I don't know if it would be Yao. Could see Alan O'Yearworth, could see Jackson Ewell. Luca Langoni was off the bench in that game.
I remember.
Kind of just depends on what Mitrovic wants to do. And with Langoni getting a rest against Rhode Island, against Inter Miami, you could see him get interjected into this lineup too.
Okay.
Might have been by design. I'm not entirely sure, but at the same time, like I expect a similar lineup against Orlando that we saw against Rhode Island.
Okay, so this is the first time I've watched this player. I can see some potential. What is the potential level for you with Zambrano?
Yeah, Zambrano is a very young player, played for Marko Mitrovic at the US U20s. Obviously, that was his senior debut in the Open Cup last game. He is a player that likes to get the ball at his feet, likes to get in behind, does a lot of running, a lot of high pressing. And I think over time, he just needs growth. I think he has the potential to be a very talented player in Major League Soccer. A lot of his games have been played at the MLS Next Pro level for Real Salt Lake. However, I think that with time, with consistency, and with the teachings of Marko Mitrovic, I think that Zambrano could be very, very useful in this team at this moment, especially with the injuries that are surrounding the offensive group.
Okay, excellent. All right. To end talking about this match, we're just doing, like I said, a quick preview. Give me a prediction. Caleb, do the Revs go through?
Yeah, I think the Revs advance. Again, I don't think that I don't think that Orlando have a strong team at all. I don't see any positives in their group. I think they're one of the worst teams in the league. I
Yep.
predicted they would be one of the worst teams in the league. I just don't see a world where the Revs don't progress in this game. Obviously, it's going to be a dogfight. It's
Yep.
not just going to be a walk in the park as projected, or as predicted. I mean, um, but again, I think that New England are going to have to battle for it. They're going to have to continue to play their game, and I think that in the end, New England should be able to come away with it.
Okay, excellent. I'm going to agree with you. I think the Revs move on and say they do, and I know you should never do this. I actually agree with you. If they do move on, I think from this point on, you play your strongest side or close to your strongest side, Caleb.
Yeah, definitely, especially when you have a CONCACAF Champions Cup berth at risk.
Yep.
I think it's an easy way as well for them to potentially win a trophy.
Yep.
And I think that if New England can hanker down and continue to be can be positive, one in the final third and defensive thirds in their game against Orlando and get the result done, it's very important and imperative that they look at the grand scheme of things and go, okay, we can go for this now. Like why would we not?
All right, excellent, Caleb. Thank you so much for joining me today. I always enjoy this. Is the second time I talked to you. I had some really good talk with you. Thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you so much for having me. As always, it's always good to talk soccer, especially when it's New England Revolution, and it's always good to have different voices that are willing to spread the good word of the game.
And that's what I'm trying to do on this show. And I just want to mention that as we're about to finish up this episode, we are live actually on YouTube and on my X account. And we currently have 93 live people watching this live video. So I want to thank everyone. And if you want to be alerted when I go live, please do actually subscribe on YouTube to F Football's Global Hub. And then you'll get an alert when we go live. I do this at all different times, so I can't tell you exactly when I'm going to go live. So a good way to get alerted so we can get a good live audience is to subscribe on the YouTube channel. So please do. All right. Well, that's going to do it for this episode. He's Caleb Pongrantz. I'm Russ Goldman. Thank you as always for watching and listening to Football's Global Hub.